Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today. I hope you're all having a great day at work. Thank you so much for taking time off for attending our webinar session today. My name is Siddharth, or Sid if that's easier, and I work as an IT security specialist at Manage Engine, and I'm going to be your presenter for today's webinar. I'm also joined by Salim, who's our technical consultant, and he will be helping out answering your queries on the live chat. So on behalf of Salim, myself, and the rest of the team at Manage Engine, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you for taking time off and joining us today for our session. But before we get started with the presentation, I just want to make sure that you have no technical issues with the webinar console from your end. So I hope you're able to hear me clearly. I hope there's no difficulties with the audio, and also you're able to view my presentation. So I've shared my screen, so I hope you have no issues in viewing my presentation and hearing my voice. So I'm just going to pause for about 30 seconds before we start. In case you have any difficulties, shoot out a message to us on the live chat and we'll see if we can resolve the problem. Right. So I hope everyone is cool and there's no issues with the audio or with my shared screen. So I just want to get a few housekeeping things also out of the way. Firstly, is that we will be sharing the entire presentation and the webinar recording with you shortly via email. So you don't have to worry about taking notes or taking photos of the presentation or anything of that sort. So you can easily share the video with the rest of your colleagues as well. And also, we are available, like I said, Salim is also joining me on the live chat. So any questions that you have, you can shoot out to us on the live chat, and and we'll resolve them immediately. Right. So getting to the presentation itself, what we're going to be looking at today is the top 5 critical alerts you need for ID security. Right? Of course, there's no such thing as a standard top 5 alerts. I'm sure you figured that out. But what we're going to be discussing are 5 really critical events that I'm sure all of you will relate to and want real-time alert notifications for. I also encourage you to shoot out other critical events for which you would like alerts on the live chat, and I can even share them during the course of the webinar for the benefit of the entire audience. One of the reasons why we are doing this webinar is because a lot of compliance regulations and IT security requirements are stressing enterprises to have in place basic measures for detecting and reporting security breaches. So this involves having security monitoring tools set up in your enterprise. And this isn't something just for the big banks and the big tech firms. This is an expectation that compliance requirements are having for enterprises of all sizes. So basic technology such as security monitoring tools, other security software, and other data security controls, that is something that all of you are expected to have in today's IT security space. So with that in mind, what we're going to be looking at as a prerequisite to the top 5 critical alerts is we're just going to have a quick introduction about SIEM or SIEM technology. A lot of you, of course, might be aware of it, might even be using or evaluating a SIEM solution. So we're going to have a quick look at the importance of log data in ID security and how you can leverage the log data using a SIEM solution. And then we're going to be looking at 5 critical events that you need alerts for, and that actually can be achieved using a SIEM solution. So the 5 alerts are something that is desirable for IT administrators in general. And we're not only going to be discussing that, but we're also going to show you how a SIEM solution can help you achieve those alerts. And like I said, over the course of the webinar, we'll also be covering general SIEM concepts, which will definitely be useful with regards to getting these alert notifications. Because the alerts, like I said, is something that all of you need to have in place as measures for detecting and reporting breaches. So we're also going to be, of course, having engagement and engage with you on the live chat, so you can reach out to us with any queries you have about the presentation's content or even about our product offerings. You can shoot out your message on the live chat, and we try to answer them immediately. Right. So we're going to be looking first at what a SIEM solution actually is. And now this is something that often gets misused in the industry, because I'm sure over the course of your tenure in IT, you might have heard several different kinds of SIEM solutions. People talk about auditing tools, about monitoring tools, about SIEM. You have security SIEM tools or SIEM tools. It's a whole mess out there, really. But ultimately, all of these different tools provide a sort of similar functionality, right? Security, information, and event management, broadly speaking, would encompass continuously monitoring security events that are occurring in your network, right? And by doing that, what you get as a result of that is you can run audit reports to periodically review activity. You can be alerted for security threats. And alerts are, of course, the key to incident detection and response. That is pretty straightforward, right? You obviously know that you need alerts in order to detect a threat to your security. And so in order to be able to detect and respond to a security incident, you first need an alert for that particular security event. And we're going to be looking at what security events you need alerts for, but I'm telling you in advance that you can get those alerts using a SIEM solution, right? So of course, the alert itself could be, the notification could be a dashboard alert or an email or an SMS, or even going one step further to automate the threat response by executing a script. But the point is, you need alerts in order to have clear-cut security measures that you can show to your compliance auditors. And this is something you can achieve very easily and efficiently by deploying a SIEM solution. So I'm not going to go into too many details into textbook definitions, because I'm sure most of you either already know this or can always look these things up online. What we're going to be looking at is a quick overview of exactly how a SIEM solution works. So a SIEM solution is going to make use of your log data, right? So this is something that you'd first have to configure on the particular log source, which could be a server, it could be a network device, it could be your SQL, it could be your IIS. Whatever it is, you got to go and configure logging that is set up an audit policy on that particular log source, so that it starts generating logs for the specified set of events. And then you collect these logs from your different disjointed sources and bring them all together in your SIEM solution, which will then correlate all this disjointed event data, identify events that pose a threat to your security, give you an alert for that event, and then also archive all the collected data so that you can then run audit reports to periodically review information, and also be in a position to conduct forensic analysis in case something does go wrong. This is broadly speaking what the entire process of SIEM or SIEM entails. So that is all theory. Now let's look at practical steps that you need to take, right? Your first job is to identify what are the events that you need to audit, right? What are the events that you need to look out for in your network? Because most of the things, let's be honest, that happens in your network are routine events that don't require, you don't really need to bother about that. But you need to first identify what are the events that need to be audited. And we're going to be talking about that in a couple of slides, which is exactly what we've named the top 5 critical alerts that you need. So you need to identify such events for which you need to audit. That is the first step. The second step is you need to configure logging only for those events of concern. So for example, if you're looking at, say, files and folder accesses, that would mean that, I mean, in the context of Windows systems, you would then need to go and configure an audit policy for object access, right? So for whatever events you have listed out that need to be audited, you need to configure logging for those events. And then you, of course, send all that event data, send all the log data to your SIEM solution, which essentially centralizes or aggregates all this event information. And it then does what we saw in the previous slide, which is to correlate these events and alert you for events that pose a threat to your security. So this will put you in a position, these alerts will put you in a position to quickly detect suspicious activity, which could be a threat to your enterprise's IT security. So I also want to let you know that we have at Manage Engine, we have Log360, which is a comprehensive SIEM solution, which integrates 2 of our tools, a bundle solution that integrates 2 of our tools, EventLog Analyzer and ADAudit Plus. So EventLog Analyzer does log management for all your critical sources across your network, right from your network perimeter devices, that is your firewalls and your IDS, IPS, and routers, your databases, your web servers, your Windows and Unix servers. Everything under the sun gets covered by EventLog Analyzer. And ADAudit Plus brings in specific real-time Active Directory change auditing into the equation. So both of these tools put together make Log360, which is a comprehensive SIEM solution for tackling both for threats arising from both external as well as internal sources. Right. So this is I might just be jumping to Log360 as and when it is needed, just to reiterate a particular point that we're going to discuss, and also to show you how you can set up and easily set up an alert for the event that we are discussing. Right? So Log360, a SIEM solution that integrates EventLog Analyzer and ADAudit Plus. If you have any more, we will be looking a bit into the solution over the course of the webinar. But as and when you have any question about the product, feel free to shoot it out on the live chat and we'll answer it right away. Right, so let's get started with the top 5 critical alerts. So number 1, modifications made to confidential data. And this is no surprise. Security of confidential data is really the most important thing in today's IT security. Let's face it, data security is probably why all of you are here today. That is the fundamental objective of all security and compliance regulations today, protecting sensitive data. Now, the data could be, of course, employee data or customer data or business sensitive data. But the point is that security, information security, is what everyone is talking about and stressing on these days. Compliance regulations want you to have measures in place to protect confidential data. This is a must, and its importance is only going to increase over the next few years. This is going to become the number 1 thing in IT, definitely by 2020. So the data itself could be stored, say, in files and folders or in databases. Typically, from what I've seen, and maybe you can reaffirm this, is that usually you might be storing employee sensitive information in files and in your databases, and you might be storing customer sensitive information in your files and folders. So if we look at tracking modifications made to confidential data, this involves tracking accesses to the confidential data, that is, who is accessing the data, and also modifications being made to the data, the value of the data changing. So here is where a very, very important concept of auditing for security comes into the picture, which we call the 4 vital Ws, right? So when it comes to your files and folders and your data objects, you need to be in a position as an administrator, you need to be in a position to know who made the change, which object was changed, when was the change made, and what the new value is versus what the old value was. So you need to be in a position to answer these 4 vital Ws, because if you're able to do that, it means you are in control of who is accessing and modifying your confidential data, because you are expected to have measures in place to ensure only the right authorized people are getting access and making changes to your files and folders and your databases. So if if you are able to answer these 4 questions, or rather pull out the answers for these questions using a tool, that would mean you are in a good position to deal with your audits. So let me show you a screenshot of Log 360 right here, which talks about all the file and folder changes that have occurred over a particular time interval on a particular domain. So all this event information has been collected by Log 360, and you are in a position to analyze and review exactly who is creating, deleting, moving, or modifying your files and folders. And beyond just let me just jump into the product, if that would be easier. So I'm just going to jump into the ADAudit Plus module of Log 360. I would encourage all of you to download the product. You can actually go to manageengine.com/log management, the URL that you see on my screen right now, and you can easily download the product. It's a very simple download. It's not going to take you more than a few minutes. So you can actually download the product and try to configure your domain controllers and your file servers and any other log source really, and try to look at how Log 360 can help you in your environment, right? Because I don't think there's anything that gives a better idea about a product than actually having a look and feel of the product itself. And in general, we develop solutions that are easy to deploy and easy to use with a lot of predefined support. So you don't have to worry even too much about, oh, is it going to be difficult for me to deploy this? Anyway, coming back to the product. So here I've just logged into the ADAudit Plus console of Log 360, and I'm going to jump to the File Audit tab and look at a report for all the file and folder changes that have occurred over the last 7 days. So you can see how quickly I get all this information out of the product. I've just done a couple of clicks, chosen the report that I need, and I want to know all the file and folder changes that have happened over a particular time frame on a particular domain. So what this means is I have all this event information that ADAudit Plus has collected, and this is presented to me in a neat graphical format so that I can visualize exactly what has happened and review and ensure everything is working as expected. So what so what this means is that when an auditor is requesting a certain piece of information, you will be able to pull out this information using a SIEM tool and show exactly what is being asked. So I can look at events. These are the events that I'm actually trying to track on my files and folders. I want to know the files and folders that have been created, deleted, modified, moved, the permissions that have been changed, the SACLs itself that has been changed. And this is an important point to remember, because when we talk about tracking and auditing files and folders, a lot of people focus on the modifications itself being made to the files and folders, but often forget that the ACLs and SACLs are what define what needs to be who gets access to the files and folder and what needs to be tracked. So changes that are being made to the ACLs and SACLs, that also needs to be tracked. So all these events that you see right here are what you need to be tracking in the context of files and folders. And all of this can be tracked out of the box using Log360, the ADAudit Plus module in this case. So for each of these events, you can associate an alert, meaning if a particular file or particular folder gets modified, you can get a real-time alert for that event. And of course, you get the report where you can go and review the information. So this is the first alert that I wanted to talk about, which is modifications made to files and folders. The second one, and this is server shutdowns and restarts. So a server shutdown itself, goes a lot beyond than just troubleshooting. Because say you have 3 or 4 or 5 server shutdowns occurring within a short period of time, say within half an hour, that could be a security issue, and you have to immediately investigate this. So a good practice here, and I want to bring this idea in now, is that of incident management, right? Because an alert is important to detect the incident, but if you can streamline your incident response by integrating your SIEM solution with a ticketing tool, that would mean that you can reduce the amount of time it takes to respond and resolve the incident. So let me just jump this time to the EventLog Analyzer module of Log360. And what I'm going to show you here is how, let me jump to the alerts tab. And what I'm going to show you here is now you'd first configure an alert for repeated shutdowns occurring within a short period of time. So you can easily set up an alert for say 5 server shutdowns occurring within half an hour. And now that you know that this alert has been set up, and if it gets triggered, you can automatically assign the alert as a ticket to the designated administrator. So if in your enterprise, this one particular IT admin is in charge of this particular Windows server, they can automatically receive a ticket saying that this alert has been raised on that particular server. So all you got to do for that is you can manage your alert configurations. You can assign a rule that says any alert being triggered on this particular device, which we've named WSM Event Log 2, any alert that gets raised on this particular server will get assigned to admin at 123. Right? So you will configure an alert that says 5 server shutdowns occurring within 30 minutes. And this alert will get raised as a ticket to this particular admin. How cool is that? And not just that, but you can also, this integrates with Service Desk Plus, which is Manage Engine's IT help desk tool, and also with ServiceNow. So you can have the alert raised as a ticket on your centralized ticketing tool as well. So this will go a long way in actually reducing the time it takes to detect and respond to a particular security incident. In this case, an unexpected or repeated server shutdowns. So this is alert number 2. And we just got one of the attendees has mentioned that they would like an alert for repeated web server errors. So that's interesting because a lot of the time, repeated something can be a bad thing, right? Because if it's just one server shutdown, it's still a concern. But if the server keeps shutting down repeatedly or unexpectedly, that could be a problem. And in the same case, one of our attendees has said that repeated web server errors is a concern for them. Because, yeah, if you have, say, repeated HTTP 200 errors occurring on your web server, that could be malicious activity. So that is, again, something that you can track using Log360. You can actually set up alerts on your IaaS or Apache web servers and track events such as this one. that is repeated occurrence of a particular HTTP error code. So clearly, repeated events can sometimes mean a bad thing because that is anomalous behavior, which often means an attack is underway. Which brings me to my third slide, which is login failures and account lockouts. Now, logon activity is, of course, very important for security and compliance. But most logon events occurring in your network would just be routine events, right? That isn't really a concern for security. And this can just be periodically reviewed using audit reports, which you can just simply schedule the audit reports and periodically review this activity. However, certain logon events, say an interactive logon by a service account, that is whenever a service account interacts with your critical server, for events like this, you might need a real-time alert, right? And take account lockouts. Multiple logon failures could be a problem. Just like we saw repeated server shutdowns or repeated web server errors, repeated logon failures is going to be a problem. And that could result in accounts getting locked out. And this is an issue that administrators face worldwide. And of course, today we are doing the webinar for this session is particularly for US time zones. But I usually joke that all of us might be divided by nations. I'm sitting here in India right now, but as IT pros, we are united by the battle against account lockouts, right? If you have a tool in place for detecting and resolving account lockouts, then that is great. But I'm sure you must have struggled with this at some point. So that is another thing. Account lockouts, that's a problem with regards to logon activity. Then, of course, there is an age-old brute force technique, which is, of course, very common and yet a very dangerous user account threat, right? So that these kinds of logon activities, suspicious logon activity, like logons during non-business hour, and things like that are things that you need to track. And here is where even the event correlation engine of SIEM comes into the picture to analyze suspicious patterns of logon activity. So what I'm going to first show you is in the context of Active Directory, since we talked about account lockouts, I'm going to show you in ADAudit Plus. I'm just going to jump to the user management category of reports. You will notice that we have actually more than 200 predefined reports. So you really become the master of your Active Directory and you know exactly what is going on in Active Directory. So here I'm going to look for the account lockout analyzer report to identify the top locked out users within a given time frame. You can identify the important details, including the logon history and the domain controller on which this occurred. So for the same account lockout, you can associate an alert. So you can get an alert for a particular account lockout and then find out the reason for the account lockout and take the necessary steps after that. So this was in the case of Active Directory. Let me also bring in, since we spoke about correlation, I'm just jumping back to the EventLog Analyzer module, and we have a whole bunch of correlation rules available for the product. So let me just change the time frame because I have some data simulated that I can show you to better understand brute force attacks. So what you can see on the left tab are essentially different sets of correlation rules that we provide alerts for, right? You have everything right from user account threats to threats on your web servers, your databases, file threats, you've got your ransomware. So a whole bunch of event correlation is done predefined by the product and you can get alert notifications for the same. So if I look at user account threats, and since we're talking about logon activity, let's look at brute force. So I have an occurrence of a brute force event for which you can get a real-time alert notification for. And if you look at the history of this event, you will notice that it starts off with a whole bunch of logon failure events. So you have an account fails to log on, an account fails to log on, an account fails to log on, and so on. And then finally, you have an account successfully logs on to a device in the network. So this chain of events, just individually, a successful logon wouldn't have made any sense. Just individually, a failed logon wouldn't have any context in for security. But when this chain of events occurs, then it's a concern for security. It could mean someone has attempted a brute force attack and guessed a user account's credentials. You can get an alert for this. And this is something that you must have. So this talks in general about what you need to track with regards to logon activity and what alerts you need to be receiving. The next one, security group membership changes. So changes in general are a concern for security. Real-time change auditing and alerting is fundamental to data security because security groups are really important, right? Because they provide users access to resources. And just a single critical change can become a huge problem for security. I'm just sorry about that, just a moment. Right. So you know that just a single change can become a huge problem to security and throw open the gates to a data breach and create a whole bunch of compliance hassles. So what would happen if right now an employee user account gets added to a security group with elevated privileges? This could result in them getting access to sensitive information. And that is a major problem. It could happen either by accident, but it could also happen because of a malicious insider. Either way, you need to detect such critical changes. Say a user is added to the administrator or domain administrator group in your Active Directory. You need a real-time alert notification for this event. But the point I'm trying to make here is that monitoring real-time changes that are occurring this isn't something like a logon event which of course would happen on a regular basis. This is not a routine event. If suddenly someone gets added to the domain administrators group, you need a real-time alert notification, right? So this is something that you can easily do with ADAudit Plus. So if here, again, I'm just back to the report section of ADAudit Plus. If I go to group management and I want to find out the recently added users to security groups, you can easily get that information for a particular time frame. You can find out which user was added to which security group and when this happened, what time this happened, and so on. So you can also set up here, you can review this information in the reports, but you can also set up alerts for specific security groups. So obviously you don't want people getting added to the administrator or domain administrator group. So for general security group changes, you could just schedule a daily or a weekly report. But if you have a critical security group, such as your administrator group, you can set up an alert so that you get notified if some user gets added to that security group. You need to track when the group membership of a user changes. And this is fundamental for securing your Active Directory. So this is number 4, security group membership changes. And coming to number 5, it's firewall rule changes, right? So obviously firewalls are very important. They're almost synonymous with security. And you know that your firewall logs are very important when it comes to your network's perimeter. Now, your firewall itself, I'm sure a lot of you might be already doing this, and you might be tracking accepted and denied connections by your firewall, which is of course very important. You need to know what traffic your firewall is allowing and what traffic it is denying, because this is a good way of ensuring that there's nothing malicious happening inside your network. But now remember that your firewall itself is governed by policies or the firewall rules, which tell the firewall which traffic it needs to allow and which traffic it needs to block. So you will notice again that changes is something that we keep coming back to over and over again. Change auditing. This is really important, because the changes made, whether it was by mistake or with malicious intent, can create a loophole in your network security. And this is something that you need to track. So in the context of your firewall, you need to know what are the rules that have been added and deleted and modified. You need to know when these rules change. So if someone was not supposed to get access to a particular server, but a rule was modified to grant a particular IP address access to that server, that could jeopardize the measures that you have in place for data security. So you need to ensure that when critical network configuration changes occur, you get notified in real time for the same. So here I'm going to just jump to the EventLog Analyzer module, and I'm going to look at setting up an alert for firewall rule changes. So I'm just going to scroll down to the section where we have predefined alerts, and we support a whole bunch of firewall vendors, right from Juniper to SonicWall to Palo Alto Networks, Checkpoint, NetScreen, Sophos. All the top vendors, we provide predefined support for their firewalls. So say I'm looking at a SonicWall firewall device, and I have an alert here for rules added, modified, deleted, and restored. So say I just want an alert for a rule that is modified, I can just simply apply this alert or for that firewall, and anytime a rule gets modified, you will get a real-time alert notification. And of course, you can review the same thing in a predefined report for the rules that have been modified on the firewall. So it's really up to you to decide which are the events that you feel you can schedule reports and review the activity on using the reports, and for this, which events would you need an alert notification for. So of course, the events that we've been looking at today are of course critical security events, and you would need real-time notifications for these events. So this finishes the 5 alerts. But it also, there's one question that I want to just talk about before wrapping up the presentation. And this is often a lot of people ask me, what are the different log sources that I need in SIEM? Because this isn't something that's easy to answer, because IT security requirements in general vary, and you also might have a lot of budget restrictions. But typically, these are the things that you need to be concerned about. You need to be concerned about your workstations, your servers, your domain controllers in Windows, your network devices, that is your firewalls, routers, and switches, your IDS, IPS systems, your endpoint security solutions, databases, web servers, and of course, threat feeds as well. So all of this put together can be brought under one roof using a SIEM solution like Log360. And this way, you have clear-cut measures to monitor security events in your network and also receive alerts for events that pose a threat to your security. So this in short is what SIEM entails, and how it can really give a huge boost to your network security and go a long way in helping you with your IT compliance audits as well. So I've come to the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for joining us once again. If you have any queries, you can ask them on the live chat and we'll answer them right away. I also want to just point you to a few resources. Of course, gave you the URL for Log360's website, which you can use to explore the product. I'm also going to send you this link, which talks very quickly in just maybe 1 or 2 minutes worth of your time. You can easily identify how Log360 can help you with different compliance mandates such as PCI and SOX and the GDPR, and also exactly what Log360 can help you audit, right from your Windows servers to your Unix servers, your databases, web servers, your network perimeter, and everything. So I'm just going to share you this link first on the live chat, so you'll receive this in a moment. So you also have the provision to schedule a personalized demo in case you're interested in having a web-based demo schedule at your convenience. You can do that from the link that I've sent you. And I've also, since I mentioned the GDPR, you can also get access to our exclusive GDPR resource zone. So I'm just going to send that as well on the live chat, so you can get up to speed on what the GDPR is and what you need to do in order to comply with the GDPR if your organization is obliged to. So I've sent that as well. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today. Do take a few moments, a few seconds really at the end of the webinar to fill up the feedback form and let us know what you liked or didn't like about the webinar. And also let us know any topics that you'd like to see in future webinar sessions. And of course, if you have any questions, please drop in a chat and we'll try to answer the question immediately. So once again, thank you so much for joining us today on behalf of the entire Manage Engine team. Have a great day at work.